there.
And we are live.
Dr. Burris, I'm going to read a little bit of your bio. Save us a little time, okay?
That's actually an attorney, not doctor.
Okay, thank
They just keep calling you doctor.
That's that church talk. Doc, hey, Doc.
Oh, that's fine. That's quite cool, but
Right? Yeah. No, you know I know you're an attorney.
yeah, right.
Civil rights attorney for the people.
Yeah, right.
Come on now.
All right. Ready? Hold on a second.
Yeah.
Okay.
We got Attorney Burris in here. Show up.
Nigga, Steve, what are you doing with my stuff?
John Burris.
Hey, everybody. It's your man, Steve Parker. You guys are tuned in to the Stephen Parker Show. It's live on Facebook, and you can also catch me on KDYA 1190 AM on Sundays at 4 p.m. You can also listen online at gospel1190.com. I always appreciate you guys tuning in and all of your support. Do me a favor and push the share button so we can enlighten somebody about this show. Today, the verdict came down just this past week, and I have some incredible voices with me, and I'm going to introduce them. They could be anywhere on CNN, MSNBC, Fox News, but they came to be on the Stephen Parker Show today, and I appreciate them so much. The first two people I want to introduce to you has been on the front lines of battle since their brother and son, Stevante Clark, was killed March 18th, 2018 in Sacramento by the Sacramento police. They've been doing some phenomenal things. Everywhere you look, they are out on the fight for justice and the struggle. And they are none other than Stevante Clark, and Mama Sequette Clark is here with us today. Say hi to them.
Hi, everyone.
How you doing?
Thank you for having us, Steve.
Thanks for coming, you guys. You guys always answer my call, and I don't take it lightly. This gentleman is a civil rights lawyer, and for almost 40 years now, he's been representing over 1,000 victims of police misconduct and thousands more in class action, employment, toxic court cases. And additionally, he has advised and represented defendants in many high-profile criminal cases. Some of his clients include people like Rodney King, Tupac Shakur, and about 119 against the city, the Oakland rioters, if you guys remember that. This man is known all over the country, and I'm so glad he's here to offer his expert opinion, and he is none other than attorney John Burris.
Good morning, Steve. Good to be with you.
Good to be with you guys. And I'll just start off to say, what was your, Mama Clark, I'll start with you. What was your response and your feeling when the verdict came down this week on the trial of Derek Chauvin, who was accused for murdering George Floyd?
So I went through so many different emotions. It was bittersweet, to say the least, but my first emotion that I really experienced was one of relief, because I knew that we were going to be okay. Just as far as the nation goes. I was really fearful that, this was going to turn our nation upside down, like the revolution. We were at the revolution's door.
Right.
Okay. So I was relieved. Right. And then I was proud. I was proud to be Black at that moment.
Wow.
I was proud to be a part of this movement at that moment. I've consistently said since my son was murdered that we're in a new civil rights movement.
Yeah.
And as we know, when from the last civil rights movement, it's not one event that causes the desired goal of the movement, but it's a collective of events. It's several different events, several different victories, and so. I felt like that was one of our victories, that we had a victory in the case with George Floyd. I also felt that my son's murder was not in vain.
Yeah.
Because without Stevante Clark, the world wouldn't have been prepped for George Floyd.
Right.
Just like the previous murders before my son, it's all we have true blood in this game. You know what I'm saying? And so it goes to show that the blood is not in vain. And that is that put peace into my heart. That brought me peace. And so I just thank God for that. And then of course I was sad because I don't have that.
Right.
For my son.
Right. Yeah. Stevante, I mean, and a lot of people just think it, was just a formality, that this conviction wouldn't really change anything, because he was on a video that the whole world saw. That was one of the main reasons why he was convicted. What are your thoughts on that, man?
People are going to talk regardless. What I like to say is that there's a difference between justice and accountability. We did not see justice, we seen accountability. George Floyd, what about Breonna Taylor, Stephon Clark? What about all those we've lost throughout, Sandra Bland, Tamir Rice? I can go on and on. So this was not justice. I believe this was accountability, and I believe this is slow progress. But like I've always said, slow progress is better than no progress.
That's right.
And I'm glad we've taken this step, but 400 years later.
Right.
And it took you 400 years and some change to finally do what's right, and we, my mother and my grandmother are people of great faith.
Yes, sir.
And me too,
Yes, sir.
But I have little faith in these systems because I believe they don't really represent the fights, rights, and causes of our people.
Absolutely.
And that's why I always say this is just half justice, which really is no justice. It's just a sign of accountability, which is slow progress. But slow progress is better.
It is. It is. I agree. Attorney Burris, what were your thoughts? I know you were probably sitting with bated breath watching this whole thing transpire from a perspective of being an attorney. Just seeing things differently from your perspective. What did you think?
Well, I was actually relieved. And the comments made before me are actually very astute comments. I, having been on television and did a lot of commentary work around it, I had some uneasiness and worry, you might say, because I was worried about this demonization approach that was being applied by the defendant. And I know that demonization has been historically used
yes,
against African American men, in particular in these cases. And so I was worried about it, but at the same time, I figured that once the verdict came back in 10 hours, that had to be a guilty verdict that was so short. And the important part to me, and why I'm listening to that, is that I knew that the videotape, the 9-minute, some odd second videotape, was something they could not ignore.
Yeah.
And I also thought that, to me, I will say this, that I don't view it as a major deal in a sociological way, a social justice way. This was so outrageous in terms of what happened to George Floyd, that everybody in America and around the world could see that was wrong.
Yes, sir.
And they all stepped up to that plate. You got to remember the rallies and everything that took place. So that part was good. But remember this, but you guys are a little young for this, but you may remember, I was part of the Rodney King civil trial back in the 1990s. And I'll tell you that Rodney King was treated very poorly by the judicial system, even though he was beaten to a pulp, that the vast majority of the general population were against him and thought that he got what he deserved. And that was a horrible thing because I had to deal with the press around that time. And people thought that, well, what were we doing representing this guy and da-da-da-da. And so that was how it was felt. 30 years later, you have another outrageous beating or killing ultimately of an African-American man, and everybody rallies around him. But at the same time, that has not stopped anything.
Yes.
When George Floyd would die last year, I had 3 murder cases by the police right in a row within a week. We now know since the jury trial, there's been 6 homicides throughout the country.
Yes, sir.
So my view is George Floyd hasn't stopped anything as it relates to use of deadly force. It was a moment in time, and I gave the speeches before about whether George Floyd represents a moment or a movement. Well, that was important. The movement would be if, in fact, you stop seeing these deadly force cases.
Yes.
But you guys know I'm involved in this case down here in Danville, where they shot and killed this homeless man. Just outrageous. And the police and the DA is now prosecuting 2 of those, that man for one of the shootings I'm involved in. But the point is he hasn't stopped anything. Now, that's not to say that progress isn't being made.
Yes, sir.
It's just not being made on the shootings. It's not being made on the shootings. A lot of work, and you've seen some of the work I've been involved in on racial profiling, the use of force in various cities, and chokeholds and positional asphyxia. Those are things that adjustments can be made.
Yes, sir.
And it will be made.
Yes,
but
sir.
If it comes down to shooting, don't shoot, you got to prosecute these police officers
yes, sir.
in a way that they understand that you do have to look at the question, was it necessary?
Was it
you
necessary?
can be objectively reasonable, but was it really necessary?
Yes, sir. Yes,
and that's a different standard.
Yes, sir.
And so until that becomes fundamentally ingrained in officers, I don't see how you get that George Floyd's case matters as a use of deadly force.
Yes,
and
sir.
we've seen that throughout the country now with all these different shooting cases that are taking place.
Yes, sir.
So,
I agree. Stevante, they just opened up an investigation of the Minneapolis Police Department, and I want you to speak to this too, Attorney Burris. Is that what we're going to need to do, is really just open up, this can of worms, I think it is, once you start investigating these guys, in all of the systematic ways that the judges and the lawyers and the head of the police are all in cahoots and do things to try to help these guys get off. Do you think that we need to start investigating any and all police departments across the country?
Yes, I think so, because people need to understand that we're not anti-law enforcement. We're anti-police terrorism. We're anti-police corruption. We're anti-police brutality. We're anti-police harassment. We're anti-police militarism. We're just, when we say, when some people say defund the police, then that's not what they're really saying. They're saying reallocate the resources to places like Stefante's house, what we've created in Sacramento, places that serve as recreational resource museum and libraries, places that teach people how to fish instead of just giving them fishes, instead of feeding our city budget and taking all the money out and giving it all to a police department who's killing our people in the streets like dogs. I think we feel like we're let down, we're not represented. And so if we don't investigate these police departments, if we don't investigate these district attorneys, these attorney generals, these police unions, then we are not getting accountability in the way we would like to see it. And not for now, but not just for now, but for future generations. We want to see accountability for future generations. And that starts with accountability now when it comes to DAs, sheriffs, police chiefs, police unions, so on and so forth.
Do you see that as a reality, though?
What I see as a reality, a real reality, is the investigation of police departments under the pattern and practice legal status that the Justice Department has. Remember this, under the Obama administration, we had many pattern and practice cases that were going on. These were great cases. And I had cases down in Salinas. I even done one with Sacramento. I did San Francisco. And what I was saying to the Justice Department, you need to look at these departments, because I think that their patterns of discriminatory law enforcement exist, that they're stopping people unnecessarily, so the racial profiling, they have using force that are not being held accountable. And so this was going along greatly until the Trump administration came in. And the first thing the Attorney General did was stop all of them. There was in Cleveland, there was in Chicago, there was in D.C., we had one in Salinas, we had in San Francisco. They stopped them all. And the one in Sacramento, they stopped them all. And so what we're really doing now is, for the new Attorney General, is stepping back up to the plate. He's designated Minneapolis. I am hopeful, though, he will go back to some of the other cities as well. Well, now, what a pattern practice means is this. If the city has a practice where you look to see where people are being stopped discriminatorily, or they're being beaten at a disproportionate rate, or they're being shot and killed, or just shot or beaten. And so they want to look at the data. It's always, you got to remember, the data is the big term we're talking about now. What does the data show? Just for example, and right now, every year there's 1,200 people killed by the police. Of that percentage, disproportionately high number of African-American men are being killed. Twice that of white people. Likewise, if you're mentally impaired, twice as that of other folks. And so what this means is that the department will look at those departments to see if these pattern and practices exist, and then offer up some kind of remedies. What we did in Oakland was exactly that. We were the private attorney general. And so we opened up the Ryder's case, and we were able to put together a negotiated settlement agreement, which is like a consent decree, and bring in an independent monitor. The Justice Department is capable of doing all of that. One of the things that's mentioned here that one should recognize, the most powerful entity that's opposition to all of this is the police unions.
Yes, sir.
The police unions in every city,
you know about that, Stevante,
will fight you tooth and nail. And so the Justice Department is one entity that can do it. we've been involved in fighting them, but really we're representing people. The union represents the other side of it.
Absolutely.
We're representing the victims, family victims who are getting killed and beat, etc. But the police union comes in and represents the officers so they don't lose their job.
That's right.
And they
That's
got
right.
the money.
And
they
they'll transfer them somewhere else.
They got the
huge
chicken.
money.
The police unions.
And there are reforms that are taking place. I think once you look and see what Congress is trying to do, one of these issues about going someplace else after you get fired at one department or have bad records. The new Justice George Floyd Act is trying to prevent that from happening.
Yes, sir.
And some of the cities are trying to prevent that from happening because we have seen, for example, we've seen people leaving Oakland and they're going out to Antioch or they're going to Vallejo. And so now I'm suing Antioch and I'm suing Vallejo, and the same people, same officers were in Oakland that we had to get rid of are now out in these other places, creating havoc, real havoc.
Yes, sir.
It's a big job.
So can you real quickly, somebody who's watching who says, what can I do at home, to help move along some of these laws or enact some laws that can help us in the inner cities? What could they do at home?
Well, I think you have to join some of the groups that are there. I mean, protest groups count.
Yes, sir.
I mean, because lawyers can do only so much. But, we can do a case. But if you want to have a movement behind that case, then you need the community support.
Yes, sir.
And you need community people to organize and be willing to meet with public officials to make a demand of what they want.
That's right.
Now, that does mean you have to do some study so you know what you're trying to get to. But I'm a firm believer in John Lewis's comments. Get in the way and make good trouble.
Get some good trouble.
We want to make people feel uncomfortable.
Absolutely.
You gotta be uncomfortable.
Absolutely. So last week, Mama Clark, I noticed something, and I'm sure Attorney Burris noticed it too. There is a strategy that the defense lawyers use now, and they try to dirty up the reputation of the victim in the case. And I saw them doing it last week. I know they did it on your case. They did it on Oscar's case. How did you feel when you saw them doing the same thing that they did to Stevante to the memory of George Floyd? Because even if he was, whatever they said he was, I don't think he deserved to be killed. So,
ironically, the New York Times had came to film my family watching the opening statements in the George Floyd case, in the Derek Chauvin trial. And when the defense began their opening argument, they immediately started to resurrect George Floyd, to kill his reputation, to kill his name, to defame him, to slander him, to dehumanize him, and to criminalize him. And I literally got sickened into my stomach, and I just was like, I cannot entertain this. I cannot watch it. And I just got up and I walked out. Because I'm not going to participate in it. I'm not going to entertain it. I'm not going to help them put those thoughts into my mind because they're irrelevant. When the victim is dead and not here to stand up for himself, then whatever he's done, it doesn't matter. Whatever he did, it doesn't matter because he's dead. So what are you talking about? So yeah, I don't even entertain it.
Well, the thing is too, Attorney Burris, is that they know that somebody on that jury who hears that may say, oh, well, he shouldn't have been out there doing that. So maybe he did get what he deserves. Is that part of their reasoning?
That's absolutely. That was my great worry. As I said, I was relieved. But before I got to the relief, I had worry. And the worry was that I was concerned that one or more of the jurors would have bought the defense's argument about, George's personal life, the drugs, and all and his health, and particularly like high blood pressure and heart conditions. But more importantly, I was concerned that they would then say, George brought this on himself. He caused his own demise. And that to me was a worry that I had, because I see that in every case that I'm involved in. It's just not that. It's every case that I'm involved in. There's always a question, well, your guy isn't worth anything.
Yes, sir.
Your guy, I just had this argument last week. Well, your guy, he's divorced from his child. He didn't see the child. Well, our guys saying, I did try to see my child. I did try to see him. I did pay support. But according to the standards of the white community, he wasn't what they thought he was.
Right.
And that happens in every case. And we have to fight through these issues about prior criminal histories. you know, and drug addiction or drug use of drugs, whatever they can find in your system. So these are issues that are basic to having to fight and represent African American people in police cases, because every case has something.
Yes.
There's always, as I say, everybody has warts.
Yeah.
I remember I argued the Rodney King case when I did my closing time. I said, look, Rodney King has warts, but that doesn't mean he deserved to be beaten up the way he was.
That's right.
You know, and so,
that's right.
but that's every case.
That's every
Rodney
case.
King is every person.
We all human.
That's right. And they did the same thing with Stevante. You know, he was doing this, he was doing that, he was running, he was behind, you know, the house doing all these, and that really didn't sit right with you, right?
And they do try to kill you.
Yeah.
Destroy your reputation.
Yeah, destroy your reputation all over again. That's what they did to my brother.
And that's what they want people to remember.
Yeah,
you know,
they try to put it in your head. They try to soak it. So, you know, and that's why it's up to the families to do the work in humanizing them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's why when you say Stevante is more than some kid who was killed in our grandmother's backyard.
Yes.
Stevante is a Stefan Clark law. Stefan is Stefan House.
Yes.
Stefan LLCs, you know,
Yes, sir.
501c3s, feeding the homeless community.
That's right.
Stefan Playground.
That's
Stefan has done more in 3 years than most men will do in a lifetime.
Right.
And Stefan continues to do work, you know,
Yes,
but Stefan has not gotten the justice that he deserves.
Wow.
And the chief of police put the officers who killed my brother back on the streets.
Yeah.
That's why I always say, and he's black. That's why I always say all skin folk ain't kinfolk.
That's right.
I also want to say this, Brother Parker, the police unions. Come on now. The color's blue. Thank you, Mr. Burris. The color's blue. Come on now. And also the police unions, after my brother died, 3 days after, gave the district attorney $13,000 in her pocket.
Wow.
Gave her $13,000. And through her entire tenure as DA, she's raised over $250,000 from police unions. And this is why this is sickening, this is sad. And until we come together as a community and start our own de-escalation task force teams, our own restoration teams, our own actionable items when it comes to community sustainability, inclusive economic development, promotion of intellectual independence, getting our small businesses together for our people, until we start getting in and teaching our people how to fish instead of just giving them fish, we will never be able to defeat this oppressive system who never represented us in the first place.
Well said. Well said. Well said.
Wow.
Well said. And we're going to talk about some of the amazing things that you just talked about that has happened since he died, through by the hard work of Mama Clark and Stevante Clark. Have done some great things in the Sacramento community. You guys make sure you Google it. But before we do that, I want to ask all three of you, you know, now that we have seen all we've seen, what do you say to young men who encounter police on a traffic stop or encounter the police in our neighborhoods to make sure that they make it home and make sure that they don't get caught up like Stefan or like George Floyd? Mama, come on.
Yeah. I just want to say, Mama Clark just did a special about this with Yahoo News, I believe.
Nice.
And just yesterday. So I'm glad you asked that question.
Sir. Yes, sir.
So Mama Clark.
So I taught all my sons to be their own men, stand straight, erect, head up, shoulders back, eye contact, firm grip when they handshake, right? I taught them to be a Clark. That was our saying in the house. Clark up. You know, that meant man up. That means, you know, use what you've been taught, right? But when it came to the talk about the police, I had to tell them to be a punk. Make it home by any means necessary.
Wow.
So forget everything that I've taught you to be, right? And yes, sir, no, ma'am. Use your manners.
Yes.
Eye contact. Don't move around. Don't be fidgety.
Right.
Don't talk back. I don't care if you're right, 110% right. Make it home.
Yes. Got to make it home. See, they could fight another day, huh, Attorney Burris?
Actually, those are no truer words have been said. I go further to say this though: you make sure you have your hands where they can be seen at all times.
Yes, sir.
And we just in Daly City the other day, a young man got, well, he shouldn't be, he's not that young, but he got killed by the police because he reached into a bag and pulled out a play gun. The problem on it, the police didn't know it was a play gun.
Right.
You know, they didn't know it was a play gun. That man's dead.
Yep.
And it's hurtful. And so I always say to everybody, make sure your hands are where they can be seen and you announce your movements before you make any moves.
Yes.
For example, when I got stopped a couple of years back, before I became well known, of course, but But before I wasn't, I was just a young lawyer starting out. I told the officer, look, my ID is in the back seat of my car, in my briefcase, and that I can get it or you can get it. Put me in the briefcase. I wasn't going to let you go in my briefcase, but you can do it. So the point of all I'm really saying is you don't go under your seat. You don't go into the glove compartment. You don't go into the side pockets. You keep your hands where they can be seen, particularly at night, and you announce what you're trying to do. Number one. Number two, you do not have to let them search your car. You do not. You can say, no, I'm not allowing you to search my car. Now, if they then go on and search it, then you then have to make a record of that. I think that what we're saying is we're going to go home alive. And so you immediately write down whatever took place that you didn't agree with. But what cops want to do is they want to search you in case you have person, in case you have anything on you. But they want to search your trunk because they're looking to make a collar for themselves, make a name for themselves. And they want to do that. And they want to hurt you. Look, make no mistake about it. They want to hurt African-American men.
Period.
They want to hurt them. They want you.
Period.
They want you in jail.
Period.
It is called full employment for white men.
Yes, sir.
That's what it's all about. That's what the drug system was about.
Yes, sir.
Get the black kids in jail so that they won't compete for the jobs, all the jobs that white men get. That's full employment for white men. It was I did criminal defense work for a long time, and it's so discriminatory in terms of the enforcement of the laws. One point I want you to remember, you know that Colorado and Washington both legalized marijuana. When the night they did it, all you saw was white men and women there smoking. You think that was the first night they were smoking?
Come on now.
But guess who was in jail for all of the marijuana?
How about
It
that?
was the black boys,
That's right.
black men.
That's right.
And that happened all throughout the country. I mean, white men and women smoke marijuana at a rate almost 6 times that or equal to that of African American men and women. But the African American men went to jail 6 times at a higher rate.
Didn't they have to overturn a lot of those convictions?
Well, once they did overturn them, once it became clear that they were going to make it legal, then they went back and looked at some of these marijuana convictions. They said all these people had these marijuana convictions, and you guys know if you get a conviction, you ruin your record.
That's right. That's
Part of the big fight is don't get 148s, 243s, or resisting arrest or assault on a police officer because it will ruin your record.
Right.
And so a lot of this is, we used to talk when I was a young guy, talk about the man, right? The system. Well, we didn't know what the hell that was. But I'm going to tell you, it's real.
It is.
It's totally real. It is totally real. And it's not said.
Enough.
It's not said. I mean, people, there's a reason, you go into the criminal justice system, African-American men get treated differently than white men do.
Yes, sir.
Or you get sentences that are different. Probation is different. Bail is different. All these things are different. Nobody's saying that. But the culture of the department, the culture of things exist in that way.
Yeah.
And that part is very, very frustrating. And just like in the police shooting case, look, they're shooting these black guys. They're not shooting white people who are unarmed.
Right.
They are killing them, but
That's
they're generally robbers and gangsters and stuff who are getting killed.
Right. Right. I
Whereas
totally agree.
But blacks are not.
Yeah. And Stevante, when you see the young Dante brother who had got shot, and you seen when the police were there and he starts wiggling around and he jumps in the car, and I immediately said, don't do that, bro. Because once you start acting, nervous and moving and doing all of that, that's when they, feel like they have a reason to do something to you.
Yeah. At the same time, if you don't know the difference between the taser and the gun, you shouldn't be on the department.
Yeah.
If and your training officers,
She was a training officer, right?
Yeah, she was a training officer. So it's like, not only have you failed, but you train others to fail at this point. And we don't know what you've been training others to do. And, so it adds to our distrust of the system as a whole.
Yes, sir.
And, just like they said between my brother's case, a cell phone and a gun. If you don't know the difference between a cell phone and a gun, you shouldn't have the job in the first place. I was listening to a comedian recently. He said, there's no bad pilots. You're not going on any plane saying, this is bad pilot. So why do we accept bad cops like that? Some professions you just can't have bad apples, and a pilot is one of those jobs.
Yeah.
The question is, how do you identify them early enough so they don't get to do the bad things on the department?
Yeah.
Because when they come in, They're not coming in and telling you they're bad cops.
And their friends are silent. And silence is
Of
compliance.
course.
Silence is compliance.
Of course.
That's why I always say, don't just charge Derek Chauvin like that. Charge the
Yes.
rest of those officers who are there present
Right.
and compliant
Yes, sir.
and silent
Yes,
as
sir.
well, because they abetted to the murder of aided and abetted to the murder of George Floyd.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Listen, it is imperative that we keep these conversations up. I am so glad to have my special guest in the studio, Attorney John Burris, Stevante, and Mama Clark. You guys are doing some incredible things in Sacramento, Stevante and Mama Clark. Tell us what's going on in Sacramento in the name of Stephon Clark.
Well, what we're doing is we have a SAC 6 program we're doing. We're bridging the gap between law enforcement and at-risk communities. We're informing and educating on policy and legislative change. We're providing resources and healing spaces for those in need in our community. We're commemorating the life and legacy of Stephon in a positive light by doing the museum, the resource, the rec, and the library, of course. And we're receiving recommendations from the community on how to prevent Stephon's, Oscar's, George Floyd's, and Dante Rice from ever happening again. But most importantly, we're spreading the gospel of love, and that's everybody love everybody.
That's right. That's right, Mama.
So I'd like to say that at Stephon's house, we have a program for mothers who have experienced the loss of a child.
Nice.
Healing with Mama Clark. It airs every Monday at 10 a.m. Any mother is encouraged to log in, join, participate, or watch. We
Nice.
go through the 12 steps of grief in a healthy fashion.
Nice.
We do worksheets. We love on one another. It's a safe space for mothers to learn, to grow, and to heal together. And so that's Healing with Mama Clark every Monday, 10 a.m. on our social media platforms. As well as I would love to share with you all that we have March 18th now and forever, the Stephon Clark Day of Reflection. In Sacramento. Signed,
Sacramento.
so that's signed into our city's legislation.
Amen.
Right. Also, we have the Stephon Clark Playground.
Yeah.
At the Fortune School that was erected March 18th this year.
On our website.
Go to our website.
What's the website? Give them the website.
www.IamSAC Foundation. That's IAMSAC Foundation.com.
.com. You guys go there, donate some money. These people have been working ever since the death of their loved one, and I think that is a great model that you guys have done. You've shown people, that we're not just going to sit back and grieve, but we're going to put some actionable items.
So you can become a member. A better way to help the movement, not the moment, is becoming a member at IamSACEvents.org. That's how you become a member of the movement.
.org. You guys, please go and support this wonderful family. I love y'all. I get to host the Stephon Clark Legacy Weekend every year, and I love doing that. Attorney Burris, before we go, say something to the people to help them, encourage them about the civil and injustices that we're dealing with in the country.
Well, I think that you have to stay vigilant, stay focused, stay on point. There's a lot of evilness that occurs amongst these folks toward our people. Unfortunately, it's there, but that doesn't mean you quit.
Yes, sir.
And I think that all the things that the Clark family is doing and other people around the country, because what I really, really enjoy and most proud of is that every family that has been hurt in some way, they themselves become leaders. And they have found a lane within themselves to go out and help and improve the conditions of others. And I've seen that all throughout the country. So there's a place for everyone and to get involved and to help move the social justice agenda. It's not going to get done by one person or two people. It's a collectiveness that occurs, that will occur. And it will be all of us, and lawyers and doctors and social activists and victims, all can do this. And so from my point of view, don't be discouraged. And even though we see these new shootings and taking place, they're not really new because there has been shootings consistently. We're just now knowing about it. I know it because I see them. People come to me, but the general population, and the best thing that's happened is these cell phones and county cases, because without them, we never would have known all of this taking place. And one point that was made that I thought was very important, that the events in George Floyd was the result of all the cases that have gone before.
That's right.
Because the general population really didn't know police brutality until Rodney King. But since then, an Oscar Grant case and other cases, there have been cameras. cell phones. And so now the whole world knows that there are bad stuff that happens.
Yeah.
That's right.
And so it's easier for them to accept.
Mhm.
I tried a case in Oakland last year where Tyndall family. You guys know the Tyndall family?
Yeah,
Selene
yeah,
Selene
that's our
Tyndall.
family.
Well,
Yeah,
that was
shout out to
Yolanda.
his family.
Yolanda
right.
Banks Reed.
That's
Come on
right.
now.
And we had a camera. But if we didn't have that camera, we would have been caught with a situation where it looked like he's the one that caused the problem.
Right.
But because there was a camera, we were able to decipher through that and demonstrate that no, he wasn't the problem.
Come on now.
Scott was the problem.
Cop was problem.
And that's what videos can do. So I think that one should maintain a sense of purpose, try to get involved in activities where people are moving in the right direction, because it's a collective will that's necessary in order to move the social justice agenda.
I totally agree. I
love
totally
y'all.
agree. Well said
I love you.
by Attorney Burris and by Stevante. Mama Clark, I remember you always would say, y'all are part of a group that nobody wants to be a part of. But you guys have used it to the best of your ability to bring change. Thank you guys so much. Keep doing what you're doing. Go to IamSACEvents.org to become a member, and go to IamSACFoundation.com and give them some money and donate something to them. I got to thank my special guest, the Clark family, Mama Clark, Stevante Clark, Attorney Burris. They all answer my calls, and I appreciate them so much. I appreciate you for tuning in to the Steve Parker Show right here on KDYA 1190. We will see you next time.
All right.
So can I get a picture with all you?
Yes, absolutely.
All right.